As you'll hear in a moment, Mary sends her apologies, so I'm in the chair as Vice Chair. This is the meeting of the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee of Harpenden Town Council. And apologies?
Just from Councillor Maynard for personal reasons, Chair.
Thank you. Do we accept that apology?
Yep.
Thank you very much. May I just say, because you're not used to me as chair, nor am I used to being chair. If you don't go to a committee meeting, I don't expect people to stand. And yes, people can speak more than once on a particular matter. That's a better way to do business in a committee. But it is useful if people do indicate in the usual way when they want to speak, because then we don't have everyone speaking at once. If you think I've ignored you, find some other way to direct my attention, because I do want everyone to have a say. Okay, fine. Declarations of interest. Are there any that you've received, and are there any to give? Thank you very much for the notice. Chairman's report and urgent items. There are two things to say here. One, for the benefit of the member of the public who's here, we will bring forward the later item and deal with that very, very shortly. The other urgent item worth mentioning is in relation to the coronavirus, which is on all of our minds, and I'll invite the town clerk to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to flag that tomorrow, as part of our weekly information bulletin, councillors will receive what is an emergency plan in relation to town council business should we need to put into place some measures to protect the function of the town council. You'll see that tomorrow. It covers a number of things, but it's really focused upon continuing reviewing government and public health Hertfordshire advice to keep an eye on the latest updates. It's there to cover things like dealing with infection of both employees, councillors, contractors and others that might come in contact with the town council. It's got a section around the potential of closing the town hall, park hall or other buildings should we get to that stage, and what the continuity arrangements would be in that sense. It reflects slightly upon the potential to cancel events and initiatives. So we do have a number of high visitor events, I think, coming up. So Sunday week we've got a street festival linked to the farmers market, which will hope will be a number of thousands of people attending that. So we're watching very carefully and looking at guidance, and there may be the scenario where we need to take the decision to cancel events, so it reflects that. And then it also reflects on the support available to employees should they be either infected or exposed to in some way. So just to flag this high-level emergency plan will be shared to you tomorrow, just with some detail.
Thank you. Any other items to be dealt with under this heading?
None from me, Chair, no.
Thank you. Public questions. Any public questions?
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the last meeting on 8th January, which are in the pack, pages 1 to 4. Thank you all for the meeting. Any comments, or can we proceed to approve and confirm the notes? That was approval. Thank you very much. Thanks. Today's date is the
11th today, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so minutes of two other meetings. There's the subcommittee, accounts and risk, pages 5 to 10. Yep.
There's no recommendations to corporate policy and finance.
Thank you very much.
Come to this committee, there are none.
So we received those minutes. Mr. Linley, those comments. Thank you very much. There's the minutes of the dementia friendly working party, which follow page yep, 7. Any comments on those? Any of those comments? Councillor Levy, you were there, obviously. Is there anything to say?
I wasn't there.
Sorry. Apologies. Know my name, so.
That's all right. No, there's no one who was there who was here. So
There was none of us.
we'll have to take it.
They were all takers.
So I think we'll
I think we'll take it very much.
Yes.
Okay. Officers' reports, item 7. Now this is where we can deal with this first. So 7.4 moves forward. That's pages 25 and 26. I'll invite the Town Clerk to speak to this report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I don't have a great deal to add to the report that's set in front of you. This is one of the business plan priorities that was put into the new business plan for the Town Council to play a leading role in addressing litter across the town. What we try to do is, whilst recognising that the Town Council doesn't have responsibility for lots of areas of litter and street cleaning, we try to provide under paragraph 3.3 a set of kind of practical actions that we can either deliver ourselves or work with the community and other partner organisations to deliver. So you're invited to consider those along with any other ideas. And I know, Chair, that we've got Mr Turner who wishes to raise his observations on the matter as well.
Mr. Turner, would you like to go first? Or?
I can? Yeah.
You're welcome to.
Feel free to come and join, yeah.
Right.
Yes, please do.
I'm myself a local willing participant of this, and just for context, I launched a national petition today on the same subject, and I've been pushing this for a while, and it's great to see it on the agenda, so thank you for putting it on there.
Fine, good.
I've led a number of litter picks, and I've observed the sort of patterns in litter build-up around the town. I've done it. I've cleaned up Carlton Road 6 times in the last year myself with other willing wombles. We've collected over 50 bags of rubbish in that time. And I've just a couple of observations in addition to the points that Carl has put down, which are really, really good. I think there's a question about the ownership of the land, so particularly the National Rail land along Carlton Road, which Mary has said is not council property, therefore will not get cleaned by the council. And in fact I was trespassing on that when I did clean it up, even though it was on the road side. So I think that ownership and responsibility needs to be clarified. I've also was slightly perplexed when I saw one of the workers cleaning the bins, emptying the bins on that stretch of road and walking straight past litter and not touching it. I don't know whether that's part of the service, whether litter picking up is different from emptying bins. It's a separate contract, I don't know. So that's an issue. I also had I took the initiative to talk to your point about street signs, road signs, which I think are really, really useful and important. I spoke to a sign company, a local sign company, and got a quote for some signs, and was quite surprised at how less than I thought they would be. Aluminium-backed signs that you would find, substantial aluminium-backed signs which you would see for road signs that would meet transport requirements. 20 of those would be less than £1,000, laminated and very visible and very permanent. So from that's just a line in sort of a line of sight.
Sorry, I don't stop you. May I just ask a point of clarification? What do you think the sign should say?
That is a separate discussion, I think. There are template signs that you can see, which are just a person with like a road sign. I think one can be more creative than that and impactful. There are, as I said, standard templates, and other countries and counties and areas have designed the various things in various ways. Personally, I'm not in favour of just a simple image of a person, just not dropping an image. I don't think that says enough. But I think we could have a separate session on that. The other thing that I thought might be useful would be to engage local businesses, so the retail outlets, the fast food outlets and the supermarkets and Cafe Nero and Costa, because I go past in the morning at 7:30 and everyone is loading up with their day's supplies, and I think it would be, if possible, a fantastic initiative for them to have some kind of messaging to their customers, just reminding them to deal with that responsibly. Whether they're engaged, I don't know, but there's certainly the conversation can be had. Certainly along a lot of the littering late at night is from the chip shops and stuff like that. And yeah, so those are the sort of 2 or 3 things that I would
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Turner, for doing so much, drawing attention to the problem and actually doing something about it. That's very constructive, much appreciated, I'm sure. I don't know the immediate answers to the points you raised clearly, because ownership, it's usually not that easy, because roads and railways are both predate land registry, so you can't look at land registry and get an answer, usually. It's actually quite difficult. I don't know if it's something we could or should look into. We'll maybe come back to you on that. On the collector's point, do we or do we not employ the collectors? It depends where it is, isn't it? We're talking about a public road, so...
Yes, if it's on public highways, Chair, it would be the District Council through their street cleaning arrangements. So, to answer Mr. Turner's point, it can at times be separate contractors, which is the complicated thing. So, in some cases it would be the grounds maintenance contract, and in some cases it might be the street cleaning contract, which is completely different contractors and people. So that's why you might see what is the strange looking example of people walking past litter, but effectively that's not part of that contract in many cases.
That stretch of road up to Carlton Road is not covered by any council contract. Mary would confirm that.
Oh, okay, so I was referring to the point you made that when you saw someone change the bins and going past litter, so that's because whoever was changing the bins, that's part of the earlier contract, I would imagine, and the picking up more litter on the street is not necessarily there. So it's far from ideal at times, unfortunately, but it's complicated. But that would be why there is that anomaly.
Engaging with local businesses seems a positive idea, which is clear about definitely, yeah. And the road signs, just I'm trying to understand the purpose of them. It's just to prick people's consciences, presumably. Is that the point?
Yes, I think I've studied this for a while, and those that are doing it, and I've read a lot about it, can be very willful in their persistence. But I don't think there's an awful lot you can do other than appeal to what grain of conscience they have. And I think some will be hardened and willful and continue to do it. But I do believe that reminders and nudges of some conscience can have an effect. And that's the best you can do. It's a very difficult crime to detect and prosecute. So in the absence of any enforcement, you have to appeal to some better conscience, and I don't see many other opportunities.
I'd just like to open this up, and maybe we'll take this discussion in 2 stages. One, responding to Mr. Turner's particular points, and then afterwards just dealing with the report as a whole. So, anyway, who was first?
I think Councillor Courtly first. I think.
Yeah, this will respond to the particular points made, but it links to the point about what contracts we have. So I just want to be clear, for Town Council, what contracts do we have? Is it simply on our existing parks, so Batford Springs and the parks we control, and is that the only Town Council litter contracts we have?
No, so our grounds maintenance contract would also cover so the town greens, an element of the high street, and the town centre. So although even that is complex, so if you're standing on the concourse, for example, the Town Council look after that. If you go onto the pathway adjacent to the concourse, then that becomes highway. So if you imagine the stretch of greens throughout the town, so Leighton Green, Church Green and Bowes Parade, all along there is part of our grounds maintenance contract, or are covered by our internal grounds team. So in that scenario there, our contractors changing bins along that area, or our own team, if they were to see litter, they would be picking it up.
Because that's what they do.
But that's because that's what their job is to do along that area.
And then, sorry, just because this is linked to it, in that how do we monitor how they perform? Is it from our own staff observing weekends or whatever, say the street market's setting up? Because what I'm very conscious about is there's an issue about provision of bins, and there are a group of people, maybe not slightly less willful, who are lazy, and if a bin's near them, they'll put it in, and if a bin's not near them, they will. And sometimes people say, have more bins. And I understand that, but I also see in my own line of work, a key issue is when you empty the bin. So I do often see, and I'm not talking about in Hartman specifically, but I see around, as I travel around, particularly on a morning, you see a bin that's completely overflowing and lots of litter very close to it, which you assume actually everyone's tried to put it in that bin, but it's fallen out or it wouldn't fit in. And so I appreciate it's often unsocial hours, but the time you need bins emptied is kind of right at the end of the day. I'm not saying 2 in the morning, I understand that, but if the bin was emptied at 11, I don't know, on a night, then you've got much better chance that it will have contain most of its product in the morning. And linked to that, and I know this is going to sound, this is sort of arcane, I see a lot of it, there is a dramatic increase in wildlife, squirrels and foxes specifically, who are very much worked out. They want to come out at night for obvious reasons, and they can smell and scent the food. I get a lot of it spread along my garden. This isn't why I'm making the point, but I'm just saying that there's an issue about if you have a contract, making that efficient, not simply throwing more money at it, but saying let's make sure those bins are done at those times. So it's quite a long point, but I just wanted to.
Yeah. So Chair, from in terms of our contract, so the bins on all of our sites are cleaned daily, emptied daily, and that will be first thing in the morning, right. So rather than first thing at night. So it'll be one of the first jobs they go out and do in the mornings. On top of that, as and when the grounds maintenance team or our internal team are going about their daily business, if towards the end of the day they are seeing that there is an issue particularly bin, they will then also deal with that. So that bit's easier for us to manage. In terms of monitoring, it's kind of in 3 parts really. First of all, when the contractor has to provide us evidence of the work that they're carrying out. So there is a back office system where they report back to us, and we do a bit of a sampling as to the work that they've carried out. We use a lot of pictures nowadays. It was quite simple. This is what it looked like before, this is what it looked like after. So strong element of them reporting back to us. The second is ourselves as officers, eyes and ears on the ground, having a look ourselves. We don't necessarily do deliberate spot checks, but we're always out in places, and so we're keeping an eye on the wider goings on. And third, actually, we really rely on residents as well, and I think that's a healthy thing, and we really encourage residents like Mr Turner and others to let us know where there are particular issues. And I think where they are town council land, we will address them, and I think where they are other public sector land, we will help to address them by raising that with the relevant councils. So there was an example recently that was flagged through social media of a bin that I understand was getting completely full up at a certain time every day, not long after school turnout time. And we spoke to the district council, and they said, well, we'll look at the frequency of emptying that. And I think as a result of that, they've slightly changed what they're doing. So there are things to do. And in terms of private land, it's probably also worth saying, whilst it's very difficult for us to often be part of the solution, physically going and clearing, there are lots of examples, and the one that is not so much of an issue now, but still an issue, is Station House opposite the station. So for years, I think it's fair to say that the town council has taken a personal crusade to make sure that the owners of that, whilst it's been left in a state of disrepair, have regularly carried out litter picks, and so there is a role for the town council in flagging these issues to private landowners, and where necessary we have got other authorities involved, for example environmental health with Station House. So quite often we have reported them, and unfortunately that's the trigger that's made them carry out action, because we often get ignored otherwise. So we do take that role as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, because thinking about Carlton Road and the land that is possibly, quite probably, I think, owned by National Rail, and railway land. I mean, that is an issue, not just here. It's a widespread issue across the country and other bits of it. So I just wondered, with talking to other bodies, do we have any contact with National Rail on that? Because it's a sort of fairly well-known issue, isn't it? rubbish
Yes.
being flying out, well, probably not so often out of trains, but
Yeah.
along land that is owned by National Rail. And
Yeah.
they own a lot of land.
Yeah, so in that one, Chair, we haven't necessarily been in contact with National Rail in relation to that, but we do regularly write to various private people relating to all sorts of different things, including litter. So I think part of the idea of doing a kind of a short and sharp community survey to understand where the hotspots are is to, on one level, there's a danger that we're raising expectations that the town council can solve all these problems. But actually, by identifying and knowing where the hotspots are, we can then help to put relevant pressure on whoever it may be. And that's not with a guarantee that we see action, but at least then we can put our weight behind trying to get private landowners to do it, including rail companies and others.
Thank you. Sorry, you had your turn. I'll come back to you but I think other councillors probably want to speak. That's all right. Yes, indeed.
My only comment, perhaps slightly facetious, but you could argue, while signs may be a good idea, signs in many people's eyes are also litter. If you go around some of the streets around town, there are so many signs. Maybe too many signs actually eliminates their usefulness because people get obliterated by signs.
Indeed.
You see several cases, you wonder.
Indeed. That's always a problem. Councillor Drake?
I have a couple of more on wider points that Mr Turner might have a comment on this. Firstly is, have we...
So I'm just trying to address Mr Turner's particular
right,
point.
well, let me come back to right to your point.
Okay, fine. Anything else on this? I know you want to come back, but before you do.
I did have a comment about the signs, which, sorry, I want to take all of it. And it's just a thought about the comments about how do you make the signs, as you've already thought, but how do you make those signs have more of an impact? And I've got a little bit of contacts in the field of psychology, business psychology, and I'm sure many of you have seen in the last few years motorway road signs which highlight. They have a picture usually of a child and says, "Make sure my father comes home safely tonight." And they are thought to be, and I'll need to go and find out what the research is, considerably more effective than the workman here or drive slowly or anything else, because they attach to someone's emotional side, because most people can understand a child losing his parent. And I was just thinking with litter about using the pressure of younger people, children, but in the sense of, I'm not suggesting there is lives at risk, but you could, human lives at risk, but you could talk about wildlife, and you could portray that in an image of things tangled with litter, eating litter, and actually, although a rational mind will say, well, people are more important than animals, that's often not the case when you see people, give their last inheritance to a cat charity or something. So I was just a thought, and I do have a little bit of background in that area that I'd be happy to contribute to thoughts about something that had the impact, that had some bit of science behind about what actually does affect. Though I do agree putting a sign up saying £30 litter fine, because you say it won't be enforceable and people won't see that all the time.
Yes, indeed.
I think, as I said, I think it's a subject of a further discussion about what would be effective. Just a couple of other points. I wouldn't want the discussion on litter to be too concentrated on the urban side of the town, the shops, which I think personally I think are fine. What is done at the moment is fine. The pavements, the roads. If something gets dropped there, it gets picked up at some point. It's not a problem. The real problem are the verges. It's the areas of land, of grass, along the side of the road. Carlton Road is a terrible black spot because it's a corridor. And it's not just people dropping litter on the way back. There are McDonald's, there's KFC, I can show you the evidence. And we don't have McDonald's or KFC within 10 miles of the town. So, believe me, it goes on all the time. I can show you the whole history of what goes on that street. There's outside the rugby club on the Redbourne Road, the Redbourne bypass. There's the Lower Luton Road. There is the Upper Luton Road now, which is Harpenden is sort of trying to hold back the tide of this roadside litter that is encroaching on us from all sides. So I wouldn't, whilst the urban side and the bins and stuff is important, I do feel we the signage for me would be as much about road users. on the fringes of the towns, along the Redbourne Road, outside the rugby club, and those kind of areas, to make that kind of message, get that message across as well. And it's the ownership of those verges that I think also needs to be clarified.
May I just pause there and come back to you?
I don't know where our jurisdiction lies.
Well, yeah, we're going to deal with the town, but just leaving that aside from them, what about I'm thinking, Town Clerk, that generally, at least in the countryside, the verges belong to the county council as the owner of the highway.
Generally,
General principle.
Yeah, although there are some anomalies in a place like Harpenden that it makes it quite
Yeah, that's a
complex. General rule.
The
County council.
verges, yes, up to a fence or a tree line, the verges belong to the county council usually. But that probably takes us outside the jurisdiction of the actual town, doesn't it? Because the town is quite tightly drawn around there.
In some, I mean, some areas described, that does fall within the town boundaries, if you like. Whilst, again, not town council responsibility, it could be areas that we try to
Areas of
put
interest,
pressure
yeah.
and areas of interest that we try to get others to take action on.
Appreciate you haven't quite finished.
I have engaged also with Thameslink,
Yeah.
because since the extension of the platform, you've done quite a lot of work on this. Since the extension of the platform over Station Road, there has been a stream of litter falling down onto Carlton Road from the end of the platform. So rail users have been using the end of the platform as the dumping ground, and it's going through the fence and falling down onto Carlton Road, because I've picked it up several times and I keep wondering, where is this litter coming from? And yet if you go to the end of platform 1 and look over the edge, there's a whole pile of litter which has been created.
I find that very odd, because you only need to go to the end in the morning when you're going into the office.
I think there might be other users of the end of the platform at other times of the day.
I think you put it more cogently than I did, but that's rather what I was referring to.
And there are bottles down there are cans. I've got evidence of it. And I spoke to the station about it, and I've asked them to put a bin at the end of the platform.
Yeah.
Because it's too far for some drunk
Yeah.
teenager to walk
Yeah.
when they've got a can in their hand and they're getting on the train. So I've tried to do that. Just on a final point, whose responsibility are the bins? Because we've had bins removed from the town which have not been replaced. Certainly at the top of Ox Lane was one that was burned down 4 years ago and has still not been replaced. There are no bins at the side of some bus stations, at the bus stops. So I think the location and size of the bin infrastructure is outdated in the current mode of living that we have today and the size of the town. And if we were to replace the infrastructure, how would that happen and who would be responsible for it?
So the answer is there district council bins that you would refer to there, I think. So I don't know the reason why they wouldn't be replaced. But I think as part of the action that we're proposing here, we would do a bit of an audit almost of the street bins and recycling points, and that would include where they are there any that should be, are there areas that they should have a bin, and what sort of bin should they be, and the size and that sort of thing. And then off the back of that, there would be a conversation with the town council then to say, well, how do we put this in place? Is it something that the town council would be willing to fund, or is it something that we would be asking the district to put in place? And that's what I think. First of all, it's good to identify where those areas are that need the infrastructure.
Yes, no, I was just going to ask a question on that. I'm just thinking about bus stops. Apart from the small number of bus stops that are actually owned by the town council, I thought most bus stops, are they owned by the bus companies? In which case, who owns the bins at them? Are they their responsibility, or the district councils, or the bus companies?
I mean, it's super complex in this conversation, is showing that. So
yes, I could be wrong there, but I had the feeling that they were at the bus stops were actually owned by the companies.
Yeah, so a large number of the bus stops actually are town council owned.
Yes.
Now. We've
And those
replaced a
have
number
bins,
over
I
the years, and they've got bins, although they are on the highway, and so we get special permission in order to manage them and replace them. And so where we put them in place, we try to make sure that they're litter bins. And there are some that do belong to bus companies but are on highways land, so they're with highways permission. So it's kind of a mixed picture, really. So I think,
But I'm just wondering, the ones that are owned by the bus companies, whether it is their responsibility to have bins.
so it wouldn't be their responsibility.
No,
It would be
no,
their
that's not what
responsibility.
I'm asking, if the bus stop is privately owned.
Mr. Turner?
Well, on Carlton Road, there is a disused bus stop that hasn't been used. It's out of commission, just by the footbridge, and it's a smoking den, and there's no bin anywhere near it, and it's disused, and it's just a collection point for kids and teenagers, and they just throw their stuff everywhere, and there's no bin anywhere near it. So could we request the removal of that bus stop? There's no bus that has been there for 5 years, I don't think. As part of the review, perhaps, and include that in the review of bin location and size, and that's that's a particular sort of service point on that hotspot of Carlton Road and Stewart Road, and the footbridge over the railway is a massive confluence, and the bin that's there is undersized, overflows a lot, and the bus stop is 20 yards up the road, which is just again a perfect hangout for teenagers. And I don't know if the Red House drug den waste tip is.
I think that's still there.
It is still there, I know,
Yeah.
I know, but it's now accumulated more rubbish. There's now umbrellas and beds and everything else in there now, as well as God knows what else. But that's not. That's a fly tipping. It's a litter problem. But if anyone wants to feel their stomach churn, please go and have a little pokey in behind that hedge, because you will feel reviled.
Be rather careful about having a little poke round.
It is absolutely disgusting inside that ground. We went there, and it's not changed for years. But it's connected to the litter issue. But
And that's owned by the NHS, presumably, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the trust.
it's a tense.
Councillor Paul?
For district councils, I think there was something I read, you read so much, I remembered, where we're moving recycling bins opposite Davenport House in Bales Way East. Recycling sort of things, that's probably not a good thing to say.
It's not the litter, I think that's the recycling for bottles and newspapers.
Is it? Yeah, something's being moved out, and I didn't, it's not my ward, so I didn't jump in. I thought if more councils jump in, but it might be worth following up to see why they are removing bottle vents.
I think it's because the usage has gone down, because they were put in many years ago, before these things were collected from individual houses.
I thought I'd mention that because people see them disappearing. You say it could be low usage.
Well, I suppose so. Mind you, I park in there and you see people driving in to use them.
Yeah.
Quite often.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been in there. You regularly see people driving in to use them.
Thank you very much.
I'm trying to think where I've
Councillor
been.
Friggin.
That's all right.
Whichever.
Just going back to your original points that you made about both signs and local businesses, I'm wondering if we can link up with generally the plastic-free community here, because they do go hand in hand. If we can have less disposable cups, less disposable trays for people to carry their food in, if they can offer discounts to encourage people to bring their own cup, like they go hand in hand, and I think the same for both. I think that counts both for signs and for our joining up with local businesses.
Sounds a good idea to me.
Yes.
I totally agree with that.
Yes, particularly ones that do takeaway.
Yeah. Although it's often kids, I think, that take them, in their lunchtime. Well, it hurts them in their pocket. If they can get it cheaper, they might be persuaded.
So,
But one more thing.
Councillor Paul?
My pet hate is, you probably all know it, it's the Sainsbury's stairs.
Oh yeah.
Certain times they get clear, other times they've got bits of lunch and stuff in boxes. I'm not who's responsible for it, it's rather like lifts.
Sainsbury's.
The district council or Sainsbury's.
Sainsbury's.
It's Sainsbury's.
How often do Sainsbury's sweep the stairs? Is it their job? It's
Well, it's hard to talk to Sainsbury's.
The lifts are certainly there.
it's my pet hate because I use those stairs quite a lot.
Well, I
You have to
can
tread
just
your way.
note that if you walk with two little boys down there, they're quite interested in all the sweets on the floor. It's disgusting. things.
We could all make it a mission though, if we're going to Sainsbury's or the stairs, is if you see that, go to ask for the manager before you start, get the manager to say I'm not happy with it, and then if enough people do it, they might get onto it. I would advance. Sorry, I just want to make one more point, which does link it.
Final point.
Is that there's a kind of two-stage issue with engaging the local businesses with the litter problem, and one is have less disposable items, as Councillor Priggin says. So people hold on to their things rather than chuck them away. But another thing is accept that still some will be chucked away, and equally some will blow away when people didn't intend to it to blow away. But the real problem with litter is that litter is it remains there. So a McDonald's wrapper famously has got plastic inside it, so it will hang around for a very, very long time, and lots of other things will. And a pure paper, a paper towel, will, I mean, it doesn't look nice for a day or so, but will degrade. And I think that the national pressure that's going on businesses to think about their environmental obligations and use of plastics and other related items ought to be. It'd be nice to have a sort of top-down, bottom-up approach, and we have a view in our engagement with local businesses. I know we talked about it with the street markets, the vendors, asking them to have a certain, a higher level of that. And I appreciate we can't go to Sainsbury's or Waitrose and demand it, but if we make it in the consciousness of local people enough, they might start demanding it of them in enough places.
Thank you. Mr. Turner, thank you very much. I think we've done justice to, I hope you agree we've done justice to the comments you raised. I'd like to know if it's going on and talk about the report as presented, and that was your particular point. From Councillor, yes.
Actually, one or two of my points actually just being quick. So I wanted to ensure that we were linking this up with the plastic-free policy. So I think the two things absolutely I completely agree with Councillor Priggin on that point. But on the actual report itself, have we considered what other similar town councils are doing across the country on this point, or is that an action that should be added to the list?
Yes, Chair. So it is something that we always look at. We always try to see what our colleagues are doing elsewhere. Maybe the slightly reassuring, that doesn't help us locally, is it appears to be an issue in lots of different places. I know colleagues down in Chippenham Town Council are going through a similar thought process at the moment in terms of the actions that they can take. So some of these ideas here are places that have done this sort of thing. Some are, we're not afraid to steal some good ideas where there are good ideas, and we always continue to keep an eye on other places.
I was idly looking through various websites, and there are ideas around which may not simply be practical, unfortunately, would be more for the urban area rather than the verges. But, for example, encouraging people to put something in bins by making them a bit more fun. Yes, you can see, the chair. Look at it. An example of that might be that for a charity, for example, for the amount of litter actually put into the bins, that so much is then allocated to a local charity. Now, I'm not suggesting the town council could fund that, but maybe local businesses might be persuaded to sponsor this. I don't know. But there are, and that may not be an idea which is adoptable. I don't know. But it seems to me that is. There are other ideas around which we might want to, consider from that point of view. And the other thing is, I do think there is a difference between recycling and litter, as being said. However, the two things again go a bit hand in hand. And quite often there are, just in the urban spaces around here, just pure litter bins. Whereas in many places you can go, you can still see that they've got the three together: the paper, the plastic, the really general waste, and that is something which we should consider, because I think people are starting to understand the importance of recycling, because they have to do it for their own refuse in their own houses, and again that might encourage people to think a bit more than just throwing it away. Though I do tend to agree with Mr. Turner, I think a lot of these people who do litter, unfortunately, seem to have the psychology that just can't be bothered.
Interesting comments there, thank you. Councillor Drake, anyone else? Okay, Mr. Talbot, yes.
Just on the point of the bin, I've been struck how apologetic our bins are here and designed to be inconspicuous. They're dark green, black, nestled against a hedge, and then if you look closely you might be able to find it. But if you're in dark, if it's dusk and you're not particularly minded to seek one out, you really don't know where they are. They need to be bright, big and orange, and they need to stand up and say, I'm here. Which if you go around the continent, in France, in Germany, in Holland, they are like that.
Yeah.
Ours were designed 20, 30 years ago for a use for which they're not fit now. So if, on the infrastructure side, it would be fantastic if the Town Council could either find an initiative to do themselves or impress on St Albans District Council the importance of elevating the bins to make them more prominent in some way.
Interesting observation, Mr. Taylor, because if you don't see it, you don't use it.
They're inconspicuous. They were designed to be. They were an apology when they were put in 30 years ago, and sweep it under the carpet. Now they need to be big and bold.
Agree.
Any other comments? Are we then ready to agree paragraph 3, actions in the report? All in favour? So, no against. Thank you, Mr. Turner. You're obviously welcome to continue listening to the rest of the meeting.
What's on the agenda?
Do you not have an agenda? Is there an agenda?
There's a public back out here, yeah.
The budget.
That's fine. Charles getting one, that's fine.
Communication. Written it down. Service level, communications budget.
Hang around a little bit, it'll be quite interesting. Thank you. I'll be quiet and no one.
No, that's fine.
That gives the headlines in there. Right, thank you. If I can ask you just to make your way back here, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. So back to 7 more, which is the resolution tracker, 11 to 14, and some of those resolutions come out because they're complete. So we're noting that. Thank you very much. Any objections at all? Thank you. The budget control, 15 to 22. Extensive numbers updated to the end of January, I believe. Councillor Drake, I understand you had the opportunity just to review them briefly.
I have.
Do you have any comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, I tend to look for things that are clear variance over the rest of the year, and there was nothing I could see which was out of line. I couldn't really see anything that was out of pattern. My one question on this is, given the potential effect of coronavirus on our commercial income, and we know that the commercial income is the most variable part of our finances, as to what would be the impact if, for example, we were not to have the farm by the end of this financial year is March, is it? In that case, we may be fortunate from that point of view for this current year, but I'm thinking therefore for the following year, if, say, for example, we were to lose the farmers' market, for example, for April, May, and possibly June.
And particularly the carnival as well.
Yes, and the carnival, yeah. Because it's I don't think there's too much effect on this year now.
Which is strictly what we're talking about.
That's strictly what we're talking about,
yeah.
But I took the opportunity just to flag that there may be a risk to...
I think that's something to note rather than
to note, yes.
debate.
Yes,
No,
it is at this stage, I agree with that.
I should have asked you if you wanted to elaborate on any points here and draw them in particular to our attention.
None, Chair, not in particular.
And the variances, just so we can understand them, they're favourable, of course, but...
Yeah, so I mean, paints picture, it is the end of January that this was taken to in the first period, and we're looking at just under £20,000. Favourable variance, predicted at the time of writing the report, predicted through to the end of the year. This sets out a favourable variance of about £57,000. However, this was the figure at the time of producing the reports, and things move on quickly. That figure will be lower. Mainly because if you look at Appendix A on page 18, where you see favourable variances against management plans, there are management plan works that are actually happening this month. So that will ensure that budget is spent. And there are also additional works that are going on around trees and proactive tree management and health and safety works that will also impact on that variance. So as it stands, I'm expecting that variance to be closer to about £40,000 favourable at the end of the year, and we'll have a clear idea of that in mid-April.
Any further questions or comments? I'll ask to note the report. You take that please your way. Thank you very much. Okay. Service level agreements, 2023 and 24, smart districts, running those briefly, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is hopefully a straightforward report. So each year we just bring as a reminder and to note the service level agreements that we have with a number of organisations. We're in the middle of a cycle, a 3-year cycle with these, or a 2-year in some cases, and so it's just a case of noting that we have them. As we get to the end of the cycle of the SLAs, this committee is asked in future to consider whether they wish to continue it. And off the back of that, we are provided with evidence against the work that these different organisations carry out under the service level agreement.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Sorry, I've all just wondered, just for clarification, sorry if I missed it, these are all of them, so we're going on a road to look at them. These are the 6, I think it's 6 that we have mentioned, yes, that's okay, it's not just the ones coming up for renewal, thank you.
No, the 311 is actually 3 separate agreements, contracts, so it's 6.
Oh yes, okay, thank you.
I have that explained as well.
That's right, thank you.
Okay, shall we note that report? Thank you very much. Littering. Stopping littering, hopefully. Communications engagement strategy, 27 onwards. Yeah, I'll ask the clerk to take us through this, please.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this is an action taken from our business plan. We do have communications and engagement strategy that we've had for a couple of years now, and that has been refreshed and tweaked slightly and set out in Appendix A. It really just sets out our kind of high-level principles of how we engage and who we engage with. You'll see from the report that we are setting out kind of 3 recommended actions to further improve the way in which we communicate and engage with different people, and they're under paragraph 3.5. I think it's worth saying one of the biggest transformations in our communications in the last 2 to 3 years is about our presence on social media, where in terms of the numbers and the stats, they've shot through the roof, and we have sort of thousands of engagements and tens of thousands of engagements with our posts now. But crucially, just to say that our engagement on social media isn't just one way, and it's deliberately not just one way. It's not just about sharing information. We are happy now to engage with members of the public and have conversations which does expose councils in some cases, and some councils find that quite a scary thing to do. But I think we've taken the approach in the last couple of years that it's the right thing to do. And off the back of that, we end up engaging in conversations with the likes of Mr Turner and others who have got important matters to raise locally. So I'll just refer you to the actions proposed under 3.5. I'm happy to elaborate on those should you wish me to.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just about the first action in 3.5, perhaps could you explain a little bit more about the task and finish style working group for the way we engage with young people, noting that below it seems that there isn't much capacity to do that. So I was just trying to understand what that would mean.
Yeah, so one of the areas that we suggest that we could do more on is around youth engagement. The way in which we engage with young people at the moment is on an issue-by-issue basis. So if you take, for example, something like the Harpenden Neighbourhood Plan, in order to get young people's views on that, we went out and delivered sessions in schools, not myself personally. So we tend to engage young people on a kind of issue-by-issue basis at the moment. Historically, we had a youth council, which was disbanded a couple of years ago now for a number of very good reasons. But what the Task and Finish style working group here is looking to do is to review the ways in which the Town Council could engage with young people locally, appraise the different options, understand perhaps some of the lessons from the previous Youth Council, understand, similar to Councillor Drake's point, what other places are doing, and to come back through to this committee or council with a recommendation of how the town could engage more with young people going forward. The Task and Finish style description is to say that this working group would have a short, sharp lifespan, so it would be set up hopefully after the March council meeting, should committee wish to recommend that, and it would run probably through till Christmas. So the Task and Finish style is very short, sharp. It's got a very clear role to deliver, as opposed to some of our other working parties that have a clear role, but they're kind of ongoing, kind of business as usual, like Batford Springs Nature Reserve.
Just to clarify, as I understand you talk about a working group of councillors, a small group of
Yes,
councillors.
so working group under our governance structure. So the suggestion would be that if this committee wished to approve that today, I would write out to all councillors advising of that with a view to getting nominations for that working party. The working party would be proportionate as it's a part of our governance structure, and it would be, the membership would be officially appointed at council at the end of this month.
Yes, I just would say, looking down to the next bullet point about the officer desktop review of how we currently engage with other audiences and report back to the committee. One of those, which I suppose sometimes it can be quite difficult to get a handle on, is older residents, because although there is a perception that all older residents in Harpenden will be doing it digitally, actually that's not true. And as I know from the amount of contact I have with dealing with various groups I do. So I think that is something that needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, Chair. So in terms of that, so the desktop review will essentially be a bit of a matrix exercise with the audiences we wish to engage as set out in the strategy and our existing communications channels, and just marking those up. And that should quite, it's quite basic but quite hard hitting. It will straight away show you some of the gaps. I think in theory a lot of our communications channels are directed at an older demographic in many respects, and things like Forum really help with that. In fact, it goes out to every household. We have regular engagement with the senior forums. We have presence at lots of different settings where there are older people. And that's not saying there isn't more we could do, but the reflection on the Task and Finish group for young people is that we don't have similar channels.
No, we don't. That's fine. I think we just have to make sure that whilst we're focusing on one, we forget about the other.
Good point. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Questions? I did have a conversation earlier with the town clerk, and he confirmed that references to bins does include dog poo bins as well, which is very much on the agenda, which is so indeed I was educated by Carl in that it does go in general bins, but we seem to have moved on from there with the red bins, but that would pass me by. Thank you very much. Okay. We consider the options, and do we agree the actions under phase 3 in the way? Yep. Thank you very much. Financial regulations review, page 35 onwards. It's really straightforward, despite it apparently. What's that for?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is just to set out a number of small changes to financial regulations that reflect changes to the staff structure here at the Town Council that have been approved through various committees in the last couple of months. So they are mainly reflect to a change to officer responsibility and or job titles to ensure that we are, there's a kind of smooth transition in line with our financial regulations.
So this is not a general review of the regulations, it's just those minor changes. Any questions or comments?
As a supplementary to that, Chairman, the replacement for the finance manager, is that progressing satisfactorily?
Yes, Chair. So I can report as of about 90 minutes ago, we've finalised an unconditional offer for an individual who is currently a finance manager at another local authority, and he will be joining us on the 8th of June. So he's got a 3-month notice period. But yeah, we've got someone who I'm confident who'll be very, very good, lots of local government experience. And yeah, so there is an item at Council at the end of March where Council needs to do a short-term measure around the responsible finance officer to cover a gap.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, I just wanted to say, since Mr Smith couldn't be here tonight, this would have been his last meeting, his last attendance at this committee. Perhaps we could just put on record our thanks to him. Appreciation of his work over the years.
That's fine. We did in fact say it last time.
I know,
The last one was the last.
Was it? But I thought this one was. Yes. Oh, okay. Right.
Is there some opportunity to say thank you informally?
There will be, Chair. Yeah.
That's fine.
It wasn't minuted. It wasn't minuted last week.
It was raised.
I missed it. I was too busy reading the numbers.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Thank you. So that takes us to.
We just need to approve.
Oh, sorry. We're approving the. Yeah. 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 We're asked to review the amendments and recommend the amendments to the council for adoption. Is that right? Okay. Thank you for that. Community grant fund application and monitoring, page 59. So if I could just take it through swiftly, please.
Yeah, Chair, so there's two parts to this report. The first part is a grant request from Hartland Academy, which is linked to the Summer Carnival. So we always encourage groups and schools to get involved, and this grant will enable them to get involved in the procession with a series of workshops and some fun creative stuff in the build-up. The second part of it is for noting monitor information from a previous grant fund recipient, but please don't ask me to pronounce the name of it. I may not be the one getting it right.
Okay, any questions or comments, anyone?
Yeah, I do actually about this one. I note the comment about we invite schools to take part. I just wondered, how broad that invitation had been, and the reason. I think it's best to give my reason for it. I mean, I'm not predisposed to use taxpayers' money to fund another part of the public sector, and I would normally think, though I can be persuaded based on what we're trying to achieve as a town council, I normally expect parent teachers associations to do that sort of funding for activities outside the strict curriculum. So I was actually quite surprised to see this on here. I know we're talking about £500, and it seems like I'm a bit of a killjoy, but I just find that odd. But I'd like other people's views on it as well.
I think there is an explanation. I think the town clerk can give that explanation, and that it's to do with one of the town's events.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's linked to one of the town's events, and we do allow grant applications for schools for external activities. So quite often we get approached by schools to fund internal school projects and improvements, and we reject those. But the criteria set in the community grants fund does allow people to apply, and does allow us to put that in front of the committee. I think the thing with this particular one is that they wouldn't be able to do it unless they were to have the funds in order to purchase the costumes and that participate. So I certainly understand the point around the public money funding public organisation, but I think it also adds value to the event itself and engages more young people.
So in other words, it makes it a better town summer carnival.
Yeah, that was the other angle, and I do understand that. Could I just have a follow-up on that, though, are there other schools taking part, or maybe you took part last year, in this carnival that have not applied for this money?
I would have to check that. I'd have to double check and come back afterwards. So we promote the carnival and all of our events to all different schools, and we encourage them to get involved in different ways. I'd have to double check where this application comes from, because there are schools that are always coming to us for different project ideas, and they say, what about this one? And we say, well, no, that doesn't fit criteria, and then we can't necessarily say to them, come back with something like this, but then they keep coming back to us and trying to find, because they're trying to do lots of stuff, and it's quite often it is the parent-teacher associations as well. So I'd have to clarify, because I don't want to give you the wrong information now, but I can check specifically how this one came about and whether there are others involved from schools.
Thank you. Sorry, I know but it's all linked to the same point, but my concern is that other schools may not have yet used the ploy of, we don't have the money. I mean, every school doesn't have the money, and you know, there is, judging from the teacher, the parent body of that particular school and the cars that they deliver their children to, they're not short of the ability to buy £500, and so I just find this, it doesn't sit well with me. So, well, I'll wait to hear the call.
Then just clarify on the town park, the Harmon Academy, that's the one on Victoria Road, is that right? The free school?
It's a free school that's now based where the old library was.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Well, we're nevertheless invited to approve these. Councillor Drake?
Sorry, I completely take Councillor Nichols. I was going to also ask the question about other schools, but it's a wider question which relates to, if we're going to give a grant to this particular, are there any other organisations that, does this set any kind of precedent for any other organisations wanting to take part in the summer carnival? Or are we just looking at this because this is school children?
Well, Chair, I mean, we do encourage, we write out to community groups and to schools with the carnival every year, and indeed any procession, so the Christmas carnival as well. So we're always looking for community groups to get involved, because it makes it a more vibrant event. So, as I say, I'll have to check the point around specifically what we've written out to in terms of grant opportunities for other schools that might be involved. And of course, there is a slight caveat to be aware of, in that the grants fund is only a kind of a finite pot. And so there's a danger of creating demand for that and not being able to support that demand, and then potentially having the maybe trickier decision of having 10 applications from different schools and only being able to select 3. And that's the tricky thing. The important thing is any application that before it comes to you is checked to ensure that it meets the criteria. So there are lots of conversations we have behind the scenes before it gets to here. So if it meets criteria, then it will get put in front of the committee for consideration.
I was going to say, I'm not sure that I'm entirely comfortable with this one, for one reason, because yes, there could be a concern that we're then going to get goodness knows how many. And then, I mean, for instance, the Brownies take part in all these things pretty well every year. I don't think they've ever asked for a grant, have they? They fund it themselves. I don't think has there ever been a grant?
That's exactly what you meant by other potential groups. Is this being fair?
As far as I know, the Brownies people make their costumes for them, and they don't. So I'm just like, yes, I do have reservations about it could open up I don't know if can of worms is exactly the right word, but I think it could open up a bit of an issue.
Can I just ask the town clerk the criteria, when were they last reviewed, and which is the body that approves them? Is it this committee? Or
it is, yes. It's this committee, Chair. So they would be, ordinarily they would be reviewed at the June meeting.
Okay, so we review them annually.
Yeah. Sorry, Chair, so The criteria are reviewed every 2 years
Oh, okay.
on that, so they're next to be coming back to you in June time.
Which is good. And who has reviewed this, as it were, internally and informally before it's come to this committee? Clearly you have, but...
Yeah, so at the moment it's reviewed by our Central Services Officer, although as part of the changes in responsibilities that comes over to the Community Services Manager. So that individual is the point of contact and would go through applications with any individual wishing to submit, and then it comes through to me as part of the report production stage ahead of the committee.
Fine. And clearly we didn't have the time to look at the criteria ourselves this evening, but you're confident it does fall within the criteria?
It does, yeah. So anything that comes forward would. The only school projects that don't are for non-extracurricular, so internal school projects. So for example, there's a school that are fundraising for some new toilets in their facility, and they approached us last week asking for a community grant, and we've of course politely directed them in the direction of the criteria.
Is there a way to stipulate that they can't reapply for say 5 years again? Would that even it out first? I suppose the subsequent year, all the schools would give it, wouldn't they?
Well, my inclination is if, and I do say if, we approve this, we do look closely at the criteria when they come up and see whether we've got the criteria right, and that might deal with, because we might just say not doing it quite like this again, or we put in you have one dip and you can't come back. So my inclination is that we either approve it, but we look closely at the criteria, or the alternative is, we don't approve this one, but probably the criteria anyway. But you're going to make a point, I think.
No, I just before we go to a vote, which I think we might have to on this one, as you say, I just want to make it clear, I have absolutely no problem with the Town Council inviting schools to get involved in the carnival. It's a very good thing, and that's a community thing, and we should support that. It's not the invite, it's one of those organisations saying, well, come along, but we need the money to get the kit. That's the problem. It's the money, not the event, which I think is a great idea, inviting people.
Yeah.
Well, I would propose we let it go through with subject to us being able to review the policy post the event.
Well,
yeah, I just two questions really. First is, if they come forward and they meet the criteria and we have the money, have we got any discretion?
Yeah, so it's completely
up to
the committee's decision.
It's not automatic, they met the criteria, therefore they get, so we do have discretion.
Okay.
Yeah, it's your point.
And then my second point is really an observation that Harman Academy seems to be the ones that thought of it first, but I think like Councillor Palmer, every community group involving kids will be onto this, and it's just a matter of them not knowing. So I think as more and more people are aware of the possibility of applying for a grant, they will go for it. We are really opening a can of worms, and if we're happy with that, but I really don't feel comfortable giving this money to a school where, as a parent, I'm asked to have the last 2 weeks 2 costumes to fund, and every school child has that. So this is just part of life. But there's other groups that are entirely run by volunteers that don't get any of this. So, and they love it. I love that we encourage them to take part. But yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Hall.
Can we not offer them 250? Let's say they expect them to fund the other 250 from PDA or something.
I wanted that, but in a sense, either it's right or it's wrong, and if it's wrong, we should have the courage to say it's wrong. 250 just sort of...
It's a compromise.
I'd have a bid or something if they,
Sorry?
if everybody who wants to, like if there is one pot of money, if someone has a fantastic idea, are they really going to improve this year's carnival? Let all of the groups come in and make it a competition who gets it.
Okay. That's a problem.
Yes, I was just going to say, slightly concerned as well that if councils were minded to say, well, okay, this go round, but then we're going to review it, I think that would make it extremely difficult then with any other
It would, yes.
school coming forward. I don't think you can do that very well, because you can say, oh, well, we've just changed our mind, we've just changed the rules.
On reflection, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing for clarity, Chair, and it's not really in relation to the schools point, but there's been lots of mention about community groups. It's worth just saying so you're aware that we do give a lot of support to community groups that are involved in the carnival, and that is not necessarily a cash grant, but actually I would say in some cases like the Brownies and others, potentially the time that our officers give in making sure that all their documentation and all the support that they need in order to be part of events, not just this event and other things, would probably far outweigh that sort of figure. So it's just important to clarify that, you know, our support that we give to organisations and community groups isn't just about the cash support as well, just so you're aware.
Okay. No, that's very good. There are two items here, 211, 212. I suggest we vote on them separately. And no one's commented on 212, which is to note anyway, so that's fine. 211, we were told we do meet the existing criteria, which we for review in June if we want to. But even if they meet the criteria, this committee has the discretion, taking all factors into account. And I propose to put it to the vote, and people vote according to their individual inclinations. So those in favour raise their hands.
I'd like to flush out what the feeling is before we vote.
Okay.
If it's possible.
Okay, fine. Informally.
We've got to think the PR.
Informally, yeah, I know, but informally.
And these are Hartland parents, aren't they?
They are Hartland parents,
Yeah.
but it's from one particular school.
Yeah.
No.
As Councillor Prington says, there's a lot of other Hartland parents, you know, sometimes have had their time, but have had experience that some people are still doing it, and they may well feel that.
Absolutely.
And I would make the point that you can't assume either that they're all Hartland parents. But I mean, that's neither here nor there, but don't make that assumption.
I mean, I'd like to have a consensus and not a...
No, I agree.
I'm inclined to turn it down.
So informally, yeah, let's go around the room. Councillor Paul?
Well, I can see the reason for not doing it. I can see the reason for doing it.
Yeah, which are you going to do?
Which way does it work?
Which do you want to do?
I think the danger is setting a precedent,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
No.
But how you're going to say no to them, I don't know.
Well, let's put the right decision first and work out how we deliver the answer.
No, I'd be inclined to no, because I would be concerned about the precedent.
I'm concerned about the precedent, although what Carl just said, the point about officers coming to help in schools. We had one of the officers coming to start fires in school for 3 mornings, so that kind of thing, oh, it's really hard. But I want it to be, if we offer it, I would really like it to be a grant that's open to everybody, and everybody knows about.
That's a no. Councillor Cook?
Hey, I'm not, precedent's important for me, but there's a principle there for me as well.
That's fine.
Okay, I decline it.
I decline.
Likewise, that's unanimity. So that's informal.
I think we've got the answer.
So we'll put it to the vote. Any in favour? Those against? Thank you.
Just for you to handle it tactfully, and I'm sure you will.
Yes.
Like how you wiggle out of that.
That's fine. That's Elizabeth Town Clerk on that one.
Thank you very much.
So 212, which is noting a report, and that's presumably straightforward. Okay. That's the end of the public business. So, Mr. Turner, we now move to confidential business.
I have to leave.
So
It's
we
interesting, I'm afraid. It's always the case with confidential stuff.
You can get the knives now.
or slightly more interested I was expecting it to be, so I hope you find it of some interest.
We do go in.
So, Chair, just to clarify.
Yeah,
would you like me just to read out? It's slightly different in nature. So, essentially, committee, your councillors, you're resolving to move to exempt business, given the legal and commercial sensitive potential of the next report that you've got coming up. So, you need to vote in order to do that.
As a favour.